What if a motorcycle was so fast it forced an entire industry to slow down? It wasn't a race bike. It wasn't a concept. It was a production model you could walk into a dealership and ride home, if you had the guts. In the late 1990s, while Japanese manufacturers were locked in a war over top-speed bragging rights, Suzuki unleashed a monster with a clear message: game over. It didn't just break records, it made the world rethink its limits. This is the shocking truth behind the Suzuki Hayabusa, the supersonic falcon that destroyed its rivals and ended the speed war with a single devastating strike. And if you think this was just another fast motorcycle, get ready, because the Hayabusa is the legend that made the entire industry bow down. In the late 1990s, the world of motorcycles wasn't just about speed, it was a battlefield of pride. Every Japanese manufacturer wanted to be the leader, the fastest, the strongest. No one was willing to settle for second place. Kawasaki fired the first shot. The Ninja ZX11 shook the industry, breaking all expectations with a top speed north of 170 miles per hour, a record-shattering milestone for production motorcycles. Honda quickly responded. They didn't just want to be fast, they wanted to rule. Enter the CBR 1100XX Super Blackbird, built with one goal: to become the fastest production motorcycle on Earth. And for a short time, it succeeded. But Suzuki didn't play catch-up. They chose to hunt, and their target, none other than the Blackbird. The name Hayabusa wasn't chosen by accident. In Japanese, Hayabusa means peregrine falcon, the fastest bird in the world, whose favorite prey just happens to be blackbirds. This was no longer just a speed race. It was a personal declaration of war. Suzuki didn't just want to pass the competition, they wanted to destroy it, and they made no effort to hide that. When Suzuki unveiled the Hayabusa's design, the world froze, not because it was beautiful, but because it was so bizarre, bulbous, alien, like something from the future. Hayabusa looked like no other motorcycle ever seen on public roads. But that was no accident. It was intentional. Koji Yoshi, the lead designer, once openly said the Hayabusa was built to provoke extreme reactions. Love it or hate it, but no one should ignore it. For a machine designed to dominate, there was no room for average. And the key to that design was aerodynamics. Suzuki didn't sketch the Hayabusa to look good in a showroom. They sketched it to fight the wind. Every curve, vent and contour was fine-tuned in repeated wind tunnel tests, with real riders shifting postures, wearing full gear. This wasn't just about reducing drag, it was about controlling airflow at nearly 200 miles per hour. At that speed, wind doesn't just push, it tries to tear the bike apart. The surprising inspiration: Japan's bullet trains, long noses, smooth bodies, seamless surfaces. What made those trains stable at high speeds also shaped the Hayabusa. It wasn't designed to win beauty contests. It was engineered to submit to speed at all costs. But that velocity didn't just come from its shape. It came from the heart, beating beneath those aerodynamic lines. And to fuel that aggressive body, Suzuki couldn't settle for an ordinary engine. They shattered the norm with a move that stunned the industry: 1,340 cubic centimeters for a sport bike. While rivals were refining their 1,000cc engines, Suzuki took another path, not upgrading, but reinventing. A heart that was bigger, heavier, and defied the rules. Yet somehow, it worked perfectly. This inline-4, liquid-cooled, DOHC 16-valve engine delivered 175 horsepower and 103 pound-feet of torque. But it wasn't the numbers that made the Hayabusa terrifying, It was how it delivered them. Unlike race engines that scream at high RPMs, the Hayabusa pulled hard and smooth across every gear, every speed. Whether you were in city traffic or screaming down a highway, just twist the throttle, and the power surged instantly. To manage all this, Suzuki included a gear-driven counterbalancer for reduced vibration and reinforced the chassis and swing arm to handle the massive torque. Despite its 550-pound weight, the bike felt surprisingly light and stable once in motion. A lot of that came from its GSXR1300R DNA, Suzuki's most successful sport bike. The Hayabusa inherited its engine layout, frame geometry, and design philosophy, but amplified to a whole new level. And then came the most shocking part: durability. Riders added turbos, extended swing arms, and pushed it beyond factory limits. Yet, the Hayabusa held strong. No leaks, no overheating, no failures. This wasn't just an engine for a fast bike. It was a machine, built to survive its own power. When the Hayabusa debuted in 1999 and nearly hit 200 miles per hour straight from the factory, it didn't just break records, it sent shockwaves across the world. Not among bikers, but among politicians, insurance companies, media outlets, and lawmakers. None of them had ever faced a street-legal motorcycle capable of light aircraft speeds. Meanwhile, Kawasaki wasn't going to stand by. Rumors swirled about a new model, the ZX12R, being developed to take down the Hayabusa. Whispers claimed it would be the first production bike to break 200 miles per hour out of the box. This wasn't a competition anymore, it was an arms race. Media headlines exploded. Do teenagers need 200-mile-per-hour motorcycles? Experts warned deadly accidents were inevitable. Governments began discussing restrictions, even potential bans. Japan's motorcycle industry saw the writing on the wall. If they didn't act, regulations would come crashing down. So, in quiet boardrooms, with no cameras, no press releases, a silent pact was made. The gentleman's agreement. No documents, no statements, just a handshake between giants. From now on, all production bikes would cap top speed at 186 miles per hour. Not because they couldn't go faster, but because if they kept pushing, the industry might be destroyed. And the Hayabusa, it didn't just end the speed war, it forced the entire industry to hit the brakes. The ZX12R, designed to dethrone the Hayabusa, launched and couldn't break 186 miles per hour. The ZX 14 years later, same story. Everyone was speed limited because of one name, Suzuki Hayabusa. If you've ever heard someone say the Hayabusa was banned, they're not wrong, but also not entirely right. The truth is, the Suzuki Hayabusa was never officially banned. No recalls, no legal orders, no country outlawed it. So why is it forever tied to the myth of being banned? Because it was silenced in a far more subtle way. After the Hayabusa shook the motorcycle world, its image quickly shifted from engineering marvel to public relations nightmare. Insurance companies grew wary. The media circled like vultures. Lawyers and politicians asked, what happens if a teenager crashes a Hayabusa at 200 miles per hour? Suzuki understood. And instead of fighting back, they quietly changed direction. No announcements, no debates, just action. Starting with the next generation, the Hayabusa came with electronic limiters, power curbing software, and subtle tweaks to make it appear tamer, at least on paper. That original 1999 Hayabusa, it became the only untamed legend. No limiter, no detuned maps, no restrictions, just 1,340 cubic centimeters of raw, unfiltered freedom. It was never banned in the literal sense. The Hayabusa was never banned, but it was restrained so much that it could no longer show its full potential like it once did. Yet even under limits, it proved something far more profound. Its true greatness went beyond just speed. Because even though it was no longer free to soar like it once did, the Hayabusa still amazed the world, not just for how fast it went, but for how much more it could do than anyone expected. Most assumed the Hayabusa was only built for straight-line speed, but in reality, it was one of the most versatile motorcycles ever made. The seat was wide and incredibly plush, perfect for long-distance rides without back pain. The handlebars weren't overly low, allowing for wind tuck when needed, but comfortable for city commutes. Foot pegs were rubberized to reduce vibration, and the windscreen actually worked at highway speeds. Its 550-pound weight might seem like a drawback, but it gave the bike remarkable stability, both in urban settings and at full throttle. The suspension was tuned to be firm enough for cornering, yet soft enough for long rides without fatigue. The surprise? Riders who bought the Hayabusa for its power eventually fell in love with its practicality. They used it to commute, grab coffee, take weekend trips, or simply enjoy a bike that felt incredibly balanced. And that was Hayabusa's biggest secret. It didn't just overwhelm you, it stayed with you. For many riders, the Hayabusa wasn't just a motorcycle. It was a platform for creativity, self-expression, and pure passion. It didn't take long for the Hayabusa to become an icon in the customization world. From stretched swing arms for drag racing to turbocharged builds that shattered horsepower records, the Hayabusa was ready for anything. The key? It didn't need mods, but it could take them. The 1,340 cubic centimeter engine was overbuilt from the start, allowing tuners to push it to 250 to 300 horsepower without rebuilding the entire system. The frame was sturdy, the swing arm tough, the drivetrain reliable, making it one of the most abuse-resistant platforms in high-performance motorcycling. And because of that, the Hayabusa wasn't just upgraded, it was personalized. Hayabusa owners rarely sell their bikes. They keep them, care for them, upgrade them over time, turning the machine into a reflection of themselves. The Hayabusa became the bike for life, a source of pride on every ride, and a story told at every biker meetup. A motorcycle that makes you never want to let go, not because it's flawless, but because it lets you make it flawless in your own way. Years after the smoke of the speed war cleared, one name still stood tall: Hayabusa. Not just because it was once the fastest motorcycle in the world, but because it became a symbol of an era that could never be repeated. The Hayabusa wasn't just a superbike. It was a declaration of engineering freedom, proof that sometimes limits are meant to be broken. Bikes that came later may have been faster, more powerful, more high-tech, but none delivered the same shockwave that the Hayabusa unleashed in 1999. Because that shock wasn't just about numbers, it was about attitude, about the no-compromise spirit it embodied. The Hayabusa also blurred the line between hyperbike and all-rounder. Before it, speed usually meant fragility or discomfort. But the Hayabusa proved you could hit 186 miles per hour and still ride home comfortably on the same bike. Though later generations were refined and upgraded, the magic of 1999 remains impossible to replicate. Because it wasn't just about engineering, it was about timing, context, and fearless vision. Today, the Hayabusa is more than a motorcycle. It's a milestone in history, something to remember, retell, and treasure as a legend. The Suzuki Hayabusa wasn't just the fastest motorcycle ever built. It was proof of a time when engineers were free to dream big and break the rules without fear. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't for everyone. And that's exactly why it became a legend. In a world increasingly governed by regulations, standards, and safety checks, the Hayabusa represented a singular moment when speed was everything. If you've ever ridden a Hayabusa, or even just dreamed of doing so, you're already part of its legacy. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever seen a Hayabusa in person? What do you think of the bike that made an entire industry hit the brakes? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more shocking motorcycle stories in our upcoming videos.